Josh, welcome to another Daily Play with Coach Josh. It's a cold morning here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Hope you guys are somewhere warm. But I was going back and forth in the email today, and I saw the heart of a person where this question came about. I posted a status not too long ago that talked about what I'm talking about today, and it's kind of crazy how I was giving advice to someone and how this really applied to them. But if you're watching this live, do me a big favor, share this broadcast with as many people as you can. If you're watching this a little bit later on YouTube or listening to it later on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, do me a big favor, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you're getting from this, because I would love to see how these messages, including this one, is benefiting and impacting your life. But let's get right into it. I wrote this status down. I kind of got some points, and I also developed you guys a worksheet that's available now on my website at iamunplug.com/worksheet. For those who's watching live, I'll make sure that about 5-10 minutes after this video is posted to have that link there. But the question, well, the status that I posted on my Facebook page, and I think Instagram and Twitter, was, God would never have you do anything for him with the wrong heart. The root reason is the true reason. Don't put God's name on something you really want to do. Again, I wrote this status. You can see it wherever social media, but I said God would never have you do anything with the wrong heart. The root reason is the true reason. Don't put God's name on something you really want to do. I got this question, I had a dialogue today through my email where this person was questioning their motives. They was questioning why they was doing what they was doing. They talked about how they boasted about or talked big about what they felt God wanted them to do, but they found out later on that it was really just them. And it kind of inspired me to do a video, because a lot of us deep down inside of our hearts are really not doing what God is telling us to do. We do what we want to do, and then we put God's name on it. That's where that status really resonated with me, because I've been guilty of it. I'm not talking at you or talking down to you. I'm talking with us. I have been guilty of this many times where I really thought it was God, or I really knew it wasn't God, but the best way to make myself sleep good at night and the best way to make me feel good about whatever I was doing was to put God's name on it. Never do anything without a clear and good heart. So many people do a lot of things, a lot of good things, but don't have the right heart. God doesn't care about how well thought out your product is, how well thought out your idea is. He doesn't care about how well it looks and how big the return is going to come from it. He cares about us doing everything from the right heart. I'm going to read the status again because I want to break it down. God would never have you do anything for him with the wrong heart. Meaning, it doesn't matter how good your project is, doesn't matter how big your ministry, big your business, how big the idea is, God is not going to have you do anything for him with the wrong heart. God will always address your heart before he allows you to address his assignment. But so many of us, we bypass our hearts and just do what we want to do, and then to make us feel good at night, to make other people cheer us and praise us, we put God's name on it. God will never have you do anything when he knows your heart is not right. Is your heart right? What was the state of your heart for the last decision that you made? Are you doing things right now with God's name on it, but you know your heart's not right? Because I promise you, he will never have you do anything, no matter how good it is, with the wrong heart. Now, the next point is the root reason is the true reason. If we really get down to the core of what it is, if we really get to the basement of your heart, we'll know the real reason. A lot of things that I started in ministry, a lot of things that I did in my life, and I've been in this game for 10 years, if I really looked at the bottom floor of the reason why I did it, wasn't because of God's glory. It was really because I wanted to do what I wanted to do for my name's sake. Deep down under what you broadcast and advertise, there's a real reason. What is the true reason on why you're doing what you're doing? What is the real reason? Is it for God's glory? Is it for yours? Is it for to put somebody else down? Is it for competitive reasons? What's the real reason? Because the true reason is the real reason, or the root reason is the real reason. Next point is, don't put God's name on something you really want to do. Do not, and I'm telling you from experience, I'm telling you, don't do anything without God for real, for real. And don't do anything that you really want to do and then put God's name on it. Every time I hear a person say, God is telling me to do this, or I'm doing this because I feel like God is telling me, I cringe because of my guilt in the past, but also from my experiences, I can really tell if a person's really doing it for the right reasons. Always make sure you're doing things for the right reasons. Always make sure that you're doing it with God endorsed, because time will always prove whether or not God initiated. Now let's keep going. Everything we do must be from a pure heart. Everything we do must be from a pure heart. If not, then we shouldn't do it until our hearts are pure. Everything you and I do needs to be done from a pure heart. Not a perfect heart, but a genuine heart. What is the real reason why you're doing what you're doing? What is the motive behind your movements? If we don't take the time to examine our hearts, man, we will really be thinking that we're doing things for God, but really just doing things for ourselves. Even Jesus warned, or the Bible warns, that people will crucify you, persecute you, in thinking they're doing something for God. We can't think, we must know. Now, I have 5 things that spells heart, H-E-A-R-T. Things you need to do in examining your heart, or to question your heart. Number 1, did you do it with honor and humility? H, did you do it with honor and humility? Every decision that you make, you must ask yourself, am I doing this in honor and in humility? If not, I'm not doing this on behalf of God. God will never have you do anything in dishonor. He will always have you do things in honoring, even if it's honoring the dishonorable. Even if it's honoring someone that you feel don't deserve your honor. Never do anything or make a decision without honor and humility. Think about David. Saul went to a cave to relieve himself, to use the restroom, and he was in the same cave that David was. Now, let's get a little bit before that. Saul was actually looking for David to kill David. So David was forced out of Saul's kingdom because of Saul's insecurity, because Saul was afraid that David was going to be king or to rob his throne. And so Saul got so angry that he forced David out of the kingdom. Saul was looking for David because he wanted to make sure that David was killed so that he can have security and knowing that his throne would last forever through Jonathan and through Jonathan's son, etc., etc. So Saul went into this cave to use the restroom and didn't know that was the same cave that David was in. David knew Saul was there and approached Saul, but Saul didn't know David was behind him. And instead of killing Saul, because David could have killed Saul and got to his throne quicker, but instead of killing Saul, he cut Saul's robe to let Saul know that he could have been killed. Saul recognized in Saul that David did not use the opportunity to kill him. The soldiers that were with David was like, David, bro, what you doing? This is the man Saul that was trying to kill you. Why didn't you take it in your own hands? And David began to teach the brothers that you do not touch God's anointed. That Saul is still anointed by God to be king. Even though God wasn't with Saul, he understood honor. So many of us, we do things in dishonor. And just because someone above you, a mentor or a pastor or an elder or someone, or even someone around you or beneath you, doesn't mean you take things in your own hands, and it doesn't mean that you dishonor someone. We got to make sure that we do things in honor, and also make sure that we do things in humility. We always got to check our hearts and say, is my heart honoring someone? Am I leaving in honor, or am I leaving hurt? So many people, and I've been guilty of this in my past, preaching from hurt. I tell preachers, never preach or teach from hurt. If you're hurting, go heal, because hurt people only hurt people. And when you're preaching from hurt, we know, a lot of people know that you're hurting and you're using your words as subtweets against someone else. Never preach or teach or do anything from a hurt place. Allow yourself to be healed before you speak, and make sure you do everything in honor, because if your heart's not honorable, God is not going to help what your hands want to do. I'm telling you right now from experience, God will always have you look at your heart before he gives you something to do with your hands. If you do not examine your heart and to ensure that it is honorable and that it's honoring even in a dishonorable situation, because the reason why you need to honor before you leave, or honor before you do anything or make a decision because of your name's sake, to make sure that you don't leave and burn a bridge that you may need to cross later, to make sure that you that you have just the right posture and the right heart. You also got to make sure that your heart is humble. So many people make decisions off of pride and ego, man. We got to make sure our hearts are humble. That every decision that we make, every move that we make, everything that we endeavor to do, we have to do it with a humble heart, because God will not use a prideful one. The Bible says he resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. You know for a fact what kind of heart you have by what you receive. Are you receiving grace or resistance? Are you feeling resistance as if God's not helping you and you feel like, man, this thing is just not going nowhere? It's probably because you're doing it in pride. If you feel like you're not getting that push, that endorsement, that pull from God, that support from God, then you could be doing things in pride, because God will always resist the proud, but he'll always give grace to the humble. Humble people always finds a way to get through. Humble people always find themselves succeeding because he always have grace supporting them. Everything you do, you have to make sure your heart is honoring and that is humble. Number two, another question, did you do it empty of resentment and with emotional balance? That's an important question to ask yourself. Did you do it empty of resentment and with emotional balance? It's important for us to do everything empty of resentment. All of our decisions must be done empty of resentment. That goes back to the hurt thing that I was saying. A lot of people are making decisions from hurt than from a healed place. Resentment is such a dangerous thing. It's toxic. It destroys, it corrodes. And when your heart is full of resentment, you will have false validations on why you should do what you do. That just because a person hurts you, just because something was done, doesn't mean you allow your heart to be full of resentment. A lot of people make a lot of decisions and saying that God told them to do it, or they say things that they just feel empowered by God to do, not because God told them, but their heart is resenting where they are. Always assess your heart to make sure that it's empty of all resentment, that you're not doing things out of malice, out of envy, out of jealousy, out of whatever, but that you're doing it from a real, genuine, God-centered place, making sure that you have no resentment in your heart. What is residing in your heart? What pains are there? Because whatever pains are there will formulate the perspective you have towards people. And those perspectives birthed out of pain and not the personhood of God could cause even deeper pains in your life. You have to always look at your heart and say, is there any resentment there? And before I make a decision, before I do anything, I'm going to make sure I empty my heart of all resentment so that I can make sure that nothing from my heart is advising me. I got to make sure there's no resentment in my heart advising me to do things. Your heart has a way of deceiving you. The Bible says, do not trust your heart, for it's deceptive. Your heart has a way of deceiving you. It will make you feel like you are valid in what you're doing, valid in your thinking, and it will justify it. People will find scriptures for it. People will find reasons for it. People will go out of their way to validate. Your heart is deceptive. It will deceive you. That's why you got to allow the Holy Spirit to examine your heart before you make decisions. Because I've made decisions, I'm sure you've made decisions that you regret today because you thought that it was God, or you had valid reasons on why you should, but realize you burnt the bridge that you needed, that you burnt relationship that you needed, and you finding yourself dealing with the consequences. You have to empty your heart of resentment, and you have to make sure that your heart is emotionally balanced. Emotions have a way of making us feel zealous after things that God sees that we don't have the wisdom to actually fulfill. Zeal is a dangerous thing. It's a powerful but dangerous thing. Zeal not backed by wisdom is dangerous. And so many people have a lot of zeal. But I always advise young men and young women, give yourself time to grow in wisdom, because in doing so, you will ring in your zeal, because zeal will force you to make deals that you wish that you didn't make. The zeal will force you making deals that's not real from God. You have to grow in wisdom. That's why I advise everyone that's in their teenage years, their 20s or 30s, if you haven't gone through a humbling experience, if you haven't been developed in wisdom, do not make major decisions. Surround yourself with as much counsel as possible. Surround yourself with as much time in God as possible, because And when I was in my young 20s, I had a lot of zeal. I used to advertise and broadcast how we're going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I don't need this. I don't need that person, until I realized, yo, I was reckless and careless. And my heart is going out to the person, even the person I already talked to through email, but my heart is going out to anyone out there that's so zealous, but is not wise, because time will always prove whether what you're doing was endorsed by God or not. And I have a lot of things that I sold out there and thrown out there that God never told me, or if God did tell me to do, it was the wrong timing. You always got to make sure that your emotions are balanced, that you don't have this heroic mentality, this passionate pursuit of something that God wants you to be poised and patient for. Do not pursue things without patience. If you haven't experienced or learned the lessons of patience and humility, then don't pursue things of significance. Because if you pursue things of significance without the lessons of patience and humility, you will find yourself bankrupt, empty at the end. I'm telling you as a warning. Did you do it empty of resentment and with emotional balance? You got to be poised. You got to be able to ask yourself the question, can I live without this thing? Do I really need to do this right now? Am I too hype about this? Am I too eager for this? Eagerness is dangerous, man. Eagerness is dangerous. You got to make sure that you count the cost, weigh the options, seek counsel, fast and pray and seek God, so that you know that what you're doing from your heart, what you're doing in decision making, is genuinely from God. Next, number 3A, did you acknowledge God and address your motives before doing it? Did you acknowledge God and address your motives before doing it? You got to examine your heart to ask, did I even acknowledge God about this decision, or did I avoid God in this decision? A lot of us, we do a lot of avoiding than we do acknowledging. We avoid God. If I really talk to God about this, if I really seek counsel about this, I know they're going to say no. I've heard people tell me, they was like, you know what, the reason why I didn't ask you, or the reason why I did what I did, because I knew that you were going to tell me the truth. Some people avoid you because they know you're going to tell the truth. Don't avoid the truth, because the truth will set you free from yourself. The truth will set you free from mistakes. The truth will set you free from making and causing casualties. We always got to acknowledge God first. God, is this really you? Should I do this? And I'm not going to do it until I get confirmation. That's what I'm doing now. I don't make decisions anymore without acknowledging God and asking God for confirmation. Confirmation that lets me know it's him, because I don't want to make more mistakes. I don't want to cause more casualties. I don't want to cause more mess and then make it a message later. No. I'm going to acknowledge God. I'm going to address my motives. Josh, why are you doing this? Every video that I make now, every video that I made in the last 2 years or so, I always ask myself, before I push go live, I ask myself, what's living in me that's not right? Because I want to make sure that when I go live, that my heart is empty of wrong motives, that I'm not doing this for money, that I'm not doing this for likes, that I'm not doing this for shares, that I'm not doing this for ministry engagement. I got to make sure that at its purest, that I'm doing this for God's glory, and the rest will come in his providential timing. But everything, I must address my heart. I must look at my heart and say, man, why am I even doing this? For what purpose and for what reason? Because your heart will deceive you. You will say that you're doing things for God, but you know that you're doing it for yourself. And that's why I want to warn all of us to always examine our heart and say, before I make this decision, did I even take the time to fast and pray over it, to seek counsel about it, to really acknowledge God, to make sure that I got him in mind before I make this decision? And acknowledging and considering what his word will say about this. And also, I got to make sure I address my motives before doing it. What's my motives, man? Am I really doing this for genuine reasons? Am I really doing this for godly reasons? Am I really doing this solely for God to be glorified? Or am I doing this for selfish reasons? Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with doing things and striving to be successful. We're talking about the real heart of the matter. There's nothing wrong with being entrepreneurial. There's nothing wrong with building a business. There's nothing wrong with wanting and liking and doing things. But you have to make sure that you're doing it with the bulk, and the center of it is for God's glory and for his purposes alone. The rest is just natural ambitions, but those natural ambitions must be birthed from a genuine place. Now, let's keep going. R, did you do it right? And did you reach out? Did you do it right? And did you reach out? That's important. Everything that you do when it comes to making decisions must be done right. So many stories I've heard of people who were in the right but did it wrong. Everything that you do with people, with things, with groups of people must be done the right way. And the only way you could do it the right way is being led by the Spirit of God. If you're led by your own spirit, when it's fervent, when it's inflamed, when it's passionate, you're going to make careless decisions. That's why you got to always remove yourself and allow the Spirit of God to calm you down, cool you down, so that when you do make a decision, when you do things, your heart is in the right place. Your heart is poised, is softened, it's not hard and zealous. And so many people, they are in the right, but they do what they did wrong. Next, you got to reach out. Man, there's been so many people that I've talked to, and I always tell them, did you reach out to them? And I posted a status the other day, I think yesterday, I said, ask before you assume, because the devil thrives in assumption. The devil lives in assumption. People assume, and in their assumptions make decisions. And I always tell them, but did you reach out? Did you reach out to them to make sure? It's better for you to reach out to know for sure, than to live off an assumption and find out that it wasn't even genuine, that it wasn't even real, what you thought about a person. I judge a man or a woman by their willingness to reach out. If you know that your heart is not right towards somebody, and you know deep down inside that your heart is wrong, and you're not feeling right about a person, or you've been talking, that's why I tell people, if they don't celebrate you publicly, they've been talking behind your back privately. I'm telling you, people who do that, sometimes you can find out the real reason, the real heart of people by their willingness to come see you. You can tell the heart of a person, the character of a person, by their willingness to do what's tough. That's the next point. But if they can't celebrate you publicly, if they can't come see you publicly and talk to you, or privately, if they can't show their face, they've been talking behind yours. That's where we got to eliminate this gossip, talking behind people's back. If you're going to be man enough and woman enough to make decisions and do things, then you should be man and woman enough to reach out to that person to make sure that everything is in right. The Bible talks about that before you even give your gift, leave it at the altar. And if you got any issues wrong with somebody, go find that person and get it right. It is better for you to right your wrongs than to give out a good gift. So many people are praising God every Sunday, giving things to God, doing things for God. But God's like, I don't care about what you're doing. Your heart's not right towards your brother. Did you go talk to your brother? Did you go talk to your sister? Did you go make that right or wrong? Did you reach out to them? See, people who have cowardly hearts do not reach out, but that shouldn't be us. We got to get to a place where we reach out and do it right. Before you do anything, make sure you do it. Make sure you consider the right way to do it, and go ahead and write down the names and people that you need to reach out to so that your name can be made clear and that you won't be considered a cowardly person. Last but not least, did you do what was tough to do? And was it the right timing? When it comes to making decisions with the right heart, you got to check your heart to make sure, am I willing to do what is tough? It is not easy to address somebody. It is not easy to reach out to somebody. It's not easy to go to somebody that hurts you and forgive them. It's not easy to do the right thing, but in doing the right thing, things become easier. It is best to do what's hard than to do what's easy. Easy is walking away. Easy is not having a conversation. Easy is making assumptions. It's hard to ask. It's hard to reach out. It's hard to do the right thing. And I'm telling you, God would not endorse anything through your hands if you're not willing to do the tough things, because if you can't do the tough things that are natural between human and human, you won't be able to do the tough things that the divine wants you as a human to do. You got to do the tough things. People with the right heart do the tough things. Yes, you got to listen. It's better to ask than assume. It's better to reach out than to reach wrong. It's better for you to do what is tough. That's what we all need to do. And last but not least, we got to make sure we do things in the right timing. God will never have you do anything for him with the wrong heart. He will not. The root reason is the true reason. Don't put God's name on something you really want to do. Everything we do must be done from a pure heart. And if not, we shouldn't do it until our hearts are pure. And some of us, our hearts don't become pure until over a period of time. You got to make sure you do everything in God's timing, because there's too many people and things connected to you that if you do things outside of God's timing, it will affect others. My heart for this message, that you and I make sure that we do things with the right heart, that we make sure that we do things genuinely, to make sure that we endeavor to do things even if it's tough. Because I'm telling you, so many of us make decisions and we put God's name on it, but we wondering why there's resistance and no grace. I'm telling you, man, in order to be successful in this world, we got to do right by our heart. God doesn't care about what you say out of your mouth. If your heart is wrong, we got to self-examine our hearts and ask ourselves the tough questions of, why am I doing this? For what reason? For what goal? And am I being cowardly, or am I willing to stand in front of situations? And I had to encourage that person. Going forward, you got to make sure you reach out. I said, going forward, you got to make sure that before you say God told you, that you sought God. That I tell people, I do this now. I don't, when people ask me questions like, so what are you doing right now? I don't really tell people what I'm doing right now. But I'm saying, like, I don't quickly say God told me to do something anymore. I don't quickly say this is what God told me to do. I always say I feel like this is what God is telling me to do, and time will prove if it was God telling me this or not. But I'm making sure that we got to make sure we go through this process and really looking at our hearts and saying, man, is this really me or is this really God? My final thoughts: always question your heart. Always question your heart. And number two, time will always prove if God was in it. Don't make decisions if God's not in it. Don't make decisions without, number one, making sure your heart is honorable and humbled. Number two, making sure that your heart is empty of resentment and emotionally balanced. To make sure that your heart acknowledges God and addresses his motives. That you make sure that your heart does it the right way, and that your heart reaches out. And to make sure your heart is willing to do what is willing and actually does what is tough. And is also willing to wait on God's time. I got a daily play heart check. You can download this worksheet right now. IamUnplugged.com/worksheet. You can download it right now. I have some questions for you. You could do this every time you're really about to make a decision. Decisions are very important. We're not supposed to make decisions because we feel like it. We live in a generation that do it what they feel. They do what they feel. People leave churches. People leave people. People leave ministries. People leave jobs. People leave cities. People leave countries and never talk to God. We are never meant to leave. We are supposed to be sent, and we're supposed to be sent away by God. So many people left churches, left ministries, left people, left countries, left cities, and they left because of their own emotions. They didn't leave because God told them. They left because they have validation in their heart to do so. No. We gotta make sure that the steps that we are good people under God's righteousness, and that we're allowing him to order our steps. The Bible says the steps of a good person are ordered by God. You gotta make sure it doesn't matter if people are mad at you. It doesn't matter if the church is against you. It doesn't matter what is against you. You stay there until God tells you to leave. It doesn't matter I don't care if your job is undesirable. I don't care if you hate your job. You stay there. I'm tired of us as Christians making emotional decisions without God-centered spiritual decisions. We are hurting ourselves and others because we just making decisions off of feelings. No, you got to make decisions off of facts, off of what God has told you. And you got to make sure you question your heart, because a lot of us are causing collateral damages because we do making emotional decisions. No. You must consult your heart all the time. And I've been guilty of it. And I've decided 2 years ago, and I'm fervent about it now, to always question my heart, to make sure I'm doing everything in as best as I could. And I'm telling you, this is a warning for every one of us, to make sure as we go into the darkest of days coming forward, and whenever those days come, but as we go deeper into the deception of this world system, that we always make sure that we don't allow our own hearts to deceive us, because we got to make sure that we are slow in decision making, that we exhaust all measures to make sure that we're doing things right. If your heart's not honorable, if your heart's not humble, if it's full of resentment, if it's not balanced, if it doesn't take time to acknowledge God, if it doesn't address its motives, if it does things the wrong way, if it doesn't want to reach out, and if it does what's easy and it does things on its own time, you will not succeed. Now, heart check. Got this exercise for you. You can download this worksheet right now. And every time you make a decision, I'm talking about not going to the bathroom, not brushing your teeth. I'm talking about major decisions. I want you to process this, because this will help you process your heart. The question is, will anyone be dishonored with this decision? If so, who? Next question, is God truly being honored with this decision? If so, how? Be clear and clear. Be clear. Next question, is your heart truly humble? Yes or no? Circle yes or circle no. Is there any pride or ego involved with this decision? Express below. Is your heart empty of all resentment? Yes or no? What resentment may still be in your heart in general or for this specific situation? Write it down. How balanced are your emotions? Unbalanced, some balance, or balanced? Be honest. Next question. Have you asked and acknowledged God before making this decision? If so, what were his clear instructions? What were his clear instructions? Have you asked and acknowledged God before making a decision? If so, what were his clear instructions? I want you to be clear. Always. Next question, are you doing this simply because you want to, or are you truly wanting to do the will of God? Express below. Next question, what is the right way to handle the situation or make this decision? Next question, who all do you need to reach out to out of respect? Next question, what tough thing you need to do to make sure everything is good? And last question, is this truly the right time to make this move? I made this worksheet this morning, and I'm going to utilize this worksheet every time I make a decision, because I know that this will help. Anytime that you really examine and process your heart, you will be able to see, man, I'm not really doing this for the right reasons. I left out of my own emotions. I did this out of my own will. I didn't do this for God's glory. And let me put you on game. Like I said before, if people are not willing to come see you publicly and to address you, chances are they've been talking about you privately. People who are who are not man enough or woman enough to address you and to talk to you, don't go out of your way to talk to them. Do what you got to do to go about your life and let God deal with them. Also, make sure you understand that people do things because they want to do what they want to do. Don't take it to heart. And make sure that when you do things that you take into consideration the collateral damage that could be caused by emotional decision. I'm telling you, when we take the time to examine our hearts, we won't really be eager to do a lot of things. Love you guys. Gotta go. Links in the comment section below. Love you guys. Share. Let me know what you got from this. I love you guys. If you're in the Columbus, Ohio area, I'll be there Friday talking through some of the points in my book, The Purpose of Singleness. I would love to see you there if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area. I think that's it. Books, you can get all 5 books below.